Divorced mom mocked for inheriting dilapidated gas station until old blueprints were found. They called it worthless. Her siblings laughed when their father left her a rotting gas station in the middle of nowhere instead of cash. "Take the $30,000 and be grateful," they sneered. But the moment she pulled those yellowed blueprints from behind the crumbling wall, they realized she hadn't inherited junk. She'd inherited a $180 million secret buried beneath their feet, and they'd do anything to take it from her. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know where you are watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now let's get into the story. The fluorescent lights of the downtown office building hummed overhead as Evelyn J. Fowler smoothed down her navy blazer, the same one she'd worn to every interview for the past 6 months. The fabric was beginning to pill at the elbows, but it was the only professional outfit she owned that still fit properly. "We appreciate you coming in, Mrs. Fowler," the hiring manager said, her tone polite but final. "Unfortunately, with your employment gap, we've decided to go with a candidate whose experience is more current." Evelyn felt the familiar sting of rejection but managed a gracious smile. "I understand. Thank you for your time." A decade. That's how long the gap was. 10 years of being Brad's wife, managing his household, raising his children. 10 years that apparently made her unemployable at 42. She checked her phone as she walked to her car, a 12-year-old Honda with a temperamental starter and a crack spreading across the windshield. 2:45. She had exactly 15 minutes to get across town to pick up Emma and Lily from the after-school program at St. Catherine's. The program she could barely afford but couldn't do without. The twins were waiting by the chain-link fence when she pulled up, their blonde hair catching the afternoon sunlight. At 8 years old, Emma and Lily were identical in appearance but opposites in temperament. Emma, serious and observant, clutched a library book to her chest. Lily, energetic and chatty, was already running toward the car before Evelyn had fully stopped. "Mommy, guess what happened in art class today?" Lily called, her cream-colored dress, a hand-me-down from Brad's sister, already stained with what looked like finger paint. Emma followed more slowly, her matching dress somehow still pristine. "Miss Parker said we can't afford the field trip to the Science Museum," she announced matter-of-factly as she climbed into the back seat. "She said it quietly to Mrs. Henderson, but I heard." Evelyn's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The field trip was $35 per child. $70 she didn't have. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart." As she navigated traffic back toward their apartment, a cramped 2-bedroom in a complex that had seen better days, her phone rang. The screen displayed a name she hadn't expected to see, Sterling. Her brother never called unless he wanted something or needed to deliver bad news. Usually both. She answered on speaker, keeping her eyes on the road. "Sterling. Evelyn." His voice was clipped, impatient. "Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all morning. I had an interview. Some of us actually have to look for work." The bitterness slipped out before she could stop it. He ignored the comment entirely. "Dad's attorney called. They've scheduled the reading of the will for tomorrow afternoon. 2 o'clock at Morrison and Associates downtown." Evelyn's breath caught. It had been only 3 weeks since her father's funeral. 3 weeks since she'd stood in the rain watching them lower Harold Fowler into the ground, feeling like the last anchor in her life had been cut loose. The grief was still raw, a constant ache she'd had no time to properly process. "I have a second interview tomorrow," she said, though it was a lie. She had nothing tomorrow except bills she couldn't pay and daughters who needed things she couldn't provide. "Cancel it," Sterling replied, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "This is important, Evelyn. The whole family will be there. Bye. The whole family. Evelyn knew he meant himself, their sister Vivian, and their respective spouses, the successful branches of the Fowler family tree. Sterling, 48, was a corporate attorney at one of the city's most prestigious firms. Vivian, 45, owned a thriving real estate agency. And then there was Evelyn, the family disappointment, the college dropout who'd married badly and ended up waiting tables at a truck stop before that job dried up too. "I'll be there," she said quietly. "Good. And Evelyn?" Sterling's tone shifted, taking on that particular quality that always made her feel like she was 12 years old again, being lectured for some perceived failure. "Try to look presentable. This is a professional setting." The call ended before she could respond. In the rearview mirror, she caught Emma's eyes watching her with that too knowing expression. Her daughter was 8 but sometimes seemed ancient, as if she'd absorbed all of Evelyn's anxiety and learned to carry it herself. "Is it about Grandpa?" Emma asked softly. "Yes, baby. Just some paperwork we have to take care of." "Will Uncle Sterling be mean to you?" Lily chimed in, her usual cheerfulness dimmed. Evelyn forced brightness into her voice. "Uncle Sterling is just busy. He doesn't mean to sound harsh." But they all knew it was a lie. Sterling had always been harsh, and Vivian had always been cold, and Evelyn had spent her entire life trying to measure up to siblings who'd made it clear she never would. That night, after the girls were asleep in the bedroom they shared, twin beds pushed close together because they were afraid of the dark, Evelyn sat at the small kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills. Rent was due in a week. The car insurance was overdue. The electricity bill had a disconnect warning stamped in red. Her ex-husband's child support payment was supposed to arrive every month, but Brad had a convenient habit of forgetting, or claiming his account had issues. When she'd taken him to court, he'd shown up with his expensive lawyer, and somehow made her look like the greedy ex-wife trying to bleed him dry. Never mind that he lived in a new condo with his girlfriend while Evelyn shopped at dollar stores and cut the girl's hair herself to save money. She pulled out the folder she'd been avoiding, the one with her father's funeral information, the sympathy card she hadn't had the heart to open, the program from the service. Harold Fowler had been a quiet man, a mechanic who'd worked with his hands his whole life. He'd never had much, but what he had, he'd shared freely, especially with Evelyn after her divorce. "You're stronger than you think, Evie," he'd tell her, using the childhood nickname that only he still used. "You just haven't had a chance to prove it yet." Now he was gone, and tomorrow she'd sit in that attorney's office and listen to Sterling and Vivian discuss their inheritance while she tried not to feel like the charity case at the table. She had no idea that tomorrow would be the day everything changed. She had no idea that her father's worthless gas station was about to reveal a secret that would turn her entire life upside down. And she definitely had no idea that the simple act of showing up to that will reading would put her daughters in danger and force her to become someone she never imagined she could be. All she knew, as she finally turned off the kitchen light and went to bed, was that she was tired. Bone deep, soul tired. Tomorrow, she thought, would just be another day of surviving. She had never been more wrong. The law offices of Morrison and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown, all polished marble and understated wealth. Evelyn felt every eye in the reception area turn toward her as she entered with Emma and Lily, their small hands gripping hers tightly. She'd done her best, pressed the navy blazer, cleaned the girls' cream dresses, pulled her auburn hair into a neat bun. But standing in that lobby, she felt like exactly what she was, someone who didn't belong. Sterling was already there, checking his Rolex with visible impatience. Beside him, Vivian sat with her legs crossed, her designer suit probably worth more than Evelyn's entire monthly budget. Neither acknowledged her arrival beyond Vivian's barely perceptible eyebrow raise at the sight of the twins. "You brought children to a will reading?" Sterling muttered as they were ushered into the conference room. "I couldn't afford a sitter," Evelyn replied quietly, settling the girls in chairs against the wall with coloring books she'd picked up at the dollar store. The attorney, Mr. Morrison, was a silver-haired man in his 60s who treated the proceedings with solemn efficiency. "Thank you all for coming. Harold Fowler's estate is straightforward. To Sterling Fowler, he bequeaths $75,000. Sterling's jaw tightened slightly. Not enough, Evelyn realized. He'd expected more. To Vivian Fowlerchin, $75,000. Vivian's expression remained neutral, but her manicured fingers drummed once against the armrest. And to Evelyn Fowler. Morrison paused, adjusting his glasses. He bequeaths the property known as Fowler's Country Store and Gas Station, located on Route 47, including all structures and land therein. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Sterling laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. "The gas station? That abandoned wreck?" Vivian's perfectly composed face finally cracked into something resembling shock. "He left her dad's junkyard?" Evelyn felt heat rising in her cheeks as her siblings exchanged looks that mixed pity with barely concealed satisfaction. Of course. Even in death, she was the disappointment. Morrison cleared his throat. "There's a letter." He unfolded a single page, and Evelyn recognized her father's careful handwriting immediately. "To my daughter Evelyn, who sees value where others see decay, who builds where others abandon. The foundation is stronger than it appears. Trust your eyes and your mind. With all my love, Dad." Something in those words made Evelyn sit straighter, though she couldn't have explained why. "Well," Sterling said, standing. "At least you got something. Tell you what, I'll give you $30,000 for it. Save you the headache of dealing with that eyesore. The property's appraised at $50,000. Morrison interjected quietly. "Though I'd suggest Mrs. Fowler inspect it personally before making any decisions." $50,000 for 10 acres? Vivian's eyes narrowed. "That seems low." Evelyn gathered the girls' things, suddenly desperate to leave. As she reached the door, Vivian's voice followed her. "At least now you'll have something to do besides play victim, Evie." But walking to her car, clutching her father's letter, Evelyn felt something shift inside her chest. Trust your eyes and your mind. What had her father seen that no one else had? The drive to Route 47 took nearly 2 hours, the landscape gradually shifting from suburban sprawl to rolling farmland to something approaching wilderness. Evelyn had packed sandwiches they ate in the car, and the twins had fallen into a game of counting cows and silos, their earlier excitement about the adventure still intact. When she finally pulled onto the gravel lot, that excitement wavered. Fowler's Country Store stood alone against an overcast sky, a relic from another era. The building's yellow paint had peeled away in long strips, exposing weathered wood beneath. The sign reading, Country Store, hung at an angle, one corner detached. 2 gas pumps stood like rusted sentinels, their glass faces cracked and clouded. Weeds had reclaimed most of the lot, pushing through cracks in the concrete. "It looks haunted," Lily whispered, pressed against the car window. Evelyn's heart sank. This was her inheritance. This abandoned shell in the middle of nowhere. $30,000 suddenly seemed generous. "It's not haunted," Emma said practically. "It's just old. Come on, let's explore." The front door protested with a groan but opened. Inside, dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through grimy windows. The space was larger than it appeared from outside, empty shelves lining the walls, an old counter with an ancient cash register, a few scattered stools. Everything was covered in dust, but beneath it, Evelyn noticed something unexpected. The structure was solid. No sagging ceiling, no rotted floorboards. Just neglect, not decay. A narrow staircase led to living quarters above, 2 small bedrooms, a basic kitchen, a bathroom with fixtures from the 1970s. Sparse, outdated, but habitable. Her father had lived here, she realized. Actually lived here for years before moving to the small house in town where he'd spent his final decade. "Mom! There's a big room back here!" Lily's voice echoed from downstairs. The storage room was at the rear of the building, windowless and darker than the rest. Emma had found a light switch that surprisingly still worked, illuminating metal shelving units and scattered boxes. "Look at all this stuff," Emma said, running her hand along the shelf. Then she leaned against the back wall, and something cracked. The sound made them all freeze. A section of the wood paneling had split, revealing darkness behind it. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she carefully pulled away the broken panel. Inside the hollow space, wrapped in protective plastic, were rolls of paper, large, official-looking documents. She spread the first one across the floor. Architectural blueprints, yellowed with age, dated 1962. At the top, stamped in faded red ink, "Classified Site 7 Emergency Reserve." "What is it?" Emma asked, crouching beside her. Evelyn traced the lines with her finger, her bookkeeper's mind working to make sense of the technical drawings. The blueprints showed the country store, yes, but beneath it, something vast. Multiple underground levels, storage chambers labeled with codes she didn't understand, vehicle bays, what looked like living quarters. An entire facility hidden below ground. "Mommy, look!" Lily held up a photograph she'd found in the same hollow space. It showed a young man, unmistakably her father, decades younger, standing in front of this very building. He wore what looked like a military uniform, and beside him stood several men in suits and military dress. Behind them, barely visible, was heavy construction equipment. Evelyn sat back on her heels, blueprint in one hand, photograph in the other, her father's words echoing in her mind. "The foundation is stronger than it appears." The county library was a squat brick building that smelled of old paper and floor wax. Evelyn spent 3 hours there while the twins read in the children's section, working through property records on the microfiche machine that probably hadn't been updated since the 1990s. The facts were sparse but intriguing. Her father had purchased the property in 1985 for $45,000. Before that, it had been government-owned since 1959, listed only as Federal Reserve Site, decommissioned. All detailed records were sealed, marked with classifications she didn't have clearance to access. "Excuse me," came a voice behind her. Evelyn turned to find an elderly Asian woman with silver hair and sharp eyes watching her screen. "I couldn't help but notice that address. Route 47, isn't it?" "Yes." "Did you know the property?" The woman settled into the adjacent chair. "Margaret Chin. I'm the local historian, such as it is." She studied Evelyn carefully. "There have been rumors for decades about what the government built out there during the Cold War. Your father ever talk about it? He passed away recently. Left me the property." Something flickered in Margaret's expression, recognition, perhaps, or concern. "Be careful who you tell about your inheritance, dear. That land has interested parties." The first visitor appeared 2 days later. Evelyn had returned to the apartment to find a man in a tweed jacket waiting by her door, clipboard in hand. He introduced himself as Dr. Harrison from the State Historical Society, asking detailed questions about the property's condition, whether she'd found any documentation, if there were any, unusual structural features. His interest felt wrong somehow, too intense for a supposedly routine survey. That evening, Sterling called. "Good news, Evie. I mentioned your inheritance to a colleague, and there's a developer interested. They're offering $200,000. I know it seems high, but grab it before they discover how worthless it really is." $200,000 for a property appraised at $50,000? Why would they offer so much? Does it matter? Take the money. You need it. She did need it. Desperately. But something in Sterling's eagerness made her hesitate. The second visitor was more direct. The woman who knocked on her door introduced herself as Patricia Voss from Revita Corp., immaculate in a charcoal suit. "Mrs. Fowler, we're prepared to offer $300,000 for your property. Cash, quick closing." "Why?" Evelyn asked bluntly. Patricia's smile remained fixed. "The location has development potential. We need to conduct geological surveys, of course. Access to lower levels, that sort of thing." "Lower levels?" Evelyn's breath caught. "I need time to think. Don't take too long. These opportunities don't last." That weekend, Evelyn returned to the station with the twins, the blueprints, and a new determination. If there was something below, there had to be access. They searched for hours, behind shelves, under floorboards, testing walls for hollow spaces. It was in the storage room that Emma found it, a small hollow beneath a loose floorboard. Inside was a leather journal, her father's handwriting filling the pages with dated entries. October 15th, 2023, maintained the seal. All systems dormant but secure. January 3rd, 2024, they're asking questions again. Must protect what's below. March 8th, 2024, they must never know. The trust was given to me, and I'll keep it. The final entry, dated 1 week before his death, was addressed to her. "If Evie finds this, trust yourself. You're stronger than they made you believe. The truth is below. Use the key I left you." F7. Evelyn's hands trembled as she closed the journal. Her father hadn't left her a burden. He'd left her a mystery, and a warning. Evelyn had spread the blueprints across her kitchen table every night for a week, studying them until her eyes burned. The elevator shaft should be in the southwest corner of the storage room, hidden behind what the drawings labeled as auxiliary shelving unit. She'd kept the girls home from school, telling them it was a special research day. They needed to see this together, whatever this turned out to be. The metal shelving unit in the storage room looked permanent, bolted to the wall, but the blueprints suggested otherwise. Evelyn ran her hands along the edges while Emma and Lily searched the floor. "Mom, there's a weird gap here," Lily called, pointing to where the shelving met the concrete wall. Evelyn knelt beside her. Not a gap, a seam. Barely visible, but there. She pressed against the concrete, feeling for any give. Nothing. She tried the shelving itself, pulling, pushing. "Wait," Emma said. She noticed something Evelyn had missed. A small metal ring embedded in the floor, painted the same gray as the concrete. "What if we pull this?" The ring resisted at first, then gave with a metallic groan. Something deep in the wall clicked, and the entire section of shelving swung outward on hidden hinges, concrete panel and all. Behind it was an industrial elevator shaft, the cage elevator inside straight out of the 1960s. Heavy metal grating, accordion doors, analog controls. Evelyn's heart hammered as she approached the control panel. It required a key. She fumbled in her purse for her father's keyring, the one she'd kept but never examined closely. Most were standard house and car keys, but one was different, solid brass, unusual design marked with F7. Her hands shook as she inserted it. The panel lit up with a low hum, and the elevator vibrated to life. "Are we really going down there?" Lily whispered, equal parts terrified and thrilled. Evelyn looked at her daughters, then at the elevator. Every instinct screamed this was dangerous, reckless. But her father's words echoed, trust yourself. The truth is below. Stay close to me, she said. The elevator descended smoothly, the walls of the shaft visible through the grating, concrete and steel, perfectly maintained. The counter indicated they were dropping past one level, then two, then three. Nearly 100 feet down. When the elevator finally stopped and the doors opened, Evelyn stepped into something impossible. The underground bunker stretched before them, vast and pristine. Fluorescent lights flickered on automatically, revealing a space larger than a warehouse. The air was cool, filtered, preserved. To her left, a storage bay contained stacks of gold bars on wooden pallets, each stamped with U.S. Treasury and serial numbers. Dozens of pallets. Maybe more. Mommy, Emma breathed. Is that real gold? Evelyn couldn't speak. She moved deeper into the facility, the twins following in stunned silence. Vintage military vehicles sat in perfect condition under protective covers. Sealed containers lined walls, labeled with codes and dates from the 1960s. Filing cabinets stood in neat rows, promising documents she couldn't begin to imagine. And in what appeared to be a command center, a computer terminal sat on a metal desk, far more modern than anything else here, installed years after the original construction. Evelyn touched the keyboard and the screen came to life, prompting for a password. She stared at it, her mind racing through possibilities, then typed the only thing that made sense, Evie Bird. Her father's nickname for her since childhood. The system unlocked. Files appeared on screen, her father's files, dated across decades. The first one was labeled simply, for Evelyn. She sat down heavily in the chair, her daughters pressed against her sides, and opened the file. The world she'd known, the worthless inheritance, the struggling single mother, the family disappointment, had just inverted completely. Nothing would ever be the same. The file opened to a video player. Evelyn's finger hovered over the play button for a long moment before she pressed it. Her father's face filled the screen, recorded sometime in the last year of his life. He looked tired, thinner than she remembered, but his eyes were clear and direct. Evie, he began, and hearing his voice again broke something inside her. If you're watching this, you've found Site 7. You've always been clever, even when others made you doubt it. He shifted in his chair, collecting his thoughts. What you're standing in was built in 1959 as part of a Cold War emergency network. Site 7 was designated as a gold reserve depot and command bunker, one of several hidden facilities meant to preserve government continuity if the worst happened. When the program was decommissioned in 1985, the assets were supposed to be relocated. But bureaucratic failures, lost paperwork, interdepartmental confusion, Site 7 fell through the cracks. It was simply forgotten. Evelyn felt the twins pressing closer as her father continued. I was Army Corps of Engineers, assigned to the decommissioning team. I knew what was here. When the property went to public auction with sealed records, I bought it. Spent every penny I had. I was sworn to secrecy, made guardian of what lay beneath. For 35 years, I lived above this wealth and never touched it. That was the trust given to me. The screen showed him pulling up a spreadsheet. The gold you see is worth approximately $120 million at current market value. The mineral rights to this land, which I made sure were included in the property deed, are worth at least $50 million more. Rare earth elements, Evie. The kind that makes cell phones and electric cars work. And the property itself, with development pushing out from the city, is worth over $10 million now. $180 million. The number was incomprehensible. I could have told Sterling or Vivian, her father said, his voice growing softer. But they only see dollar signs. You see responsibility. You'll protect this, not exploit it. That's why I chose you. He leaned closer to the camera. There are people who know about Site 7. Revita Corp has been trying to acquire this land since the 1990s through shell companies and proxies. They'll pressure you. They'll threaten you. Trust no one except Margaret Chin. She's an old friend, a retired federal archivist who's been helping me monitor the situation. Her father's expression changed then, becoming tender in a way that made Evelyn's eyes burn. I know what Sterling and Vivian think of you. What Brad made you believe about yourself. But you were never weak, Evie. You were careful, thoughtful. Those aren't flaws. They're wisdom. You're the strongest person I know, and you've never even realized it. He placed his hand on the screen, as if reaching for her. The world is about to get complicated. People will come after what's here. But I trust you to do the right thing. Not the easy thing, the right thing. Now be brave, sweetheart. Be the woman I always knew you were. The video ended, leaving Evelyn staring at her own reflection in the dark screen. Tears streamed down her face, and she felt Emma's hand slip into hers, Lily's arms wrap around her waist. Her father had seen her, really seen her, and he trusted her with everything. Evelyn called Margaret Chin from the bunker, her hands still shaking. The elderly woman answered on the second ring. You found it, Margaret said without preamble. My father said to trust you. That you're a retired federal archivist. I am. Harold and I worked together for years, keeping Site 7 off the radar. I'm sorry for the deception at the library, but I needed to see what you knew first. Margaret's voice grew urgent. Revita Corp's CEO, Richard Voss, has known about the facility since the mid-90s. He's been using shell companies to try to acquire the land for decades. Now that Harold's gone, they'll escalate. How much do they know? Enough to be dangerous. Everything. That night, driving home on the winding mountain road, Evelyn pressed the brake pedal and felt it sink uselessly to the floor. The car gained speed on the downward slope, and her daughter's screams filled her ears as she fought the wheel, downshifting desperately, scraping against the guardrail until momentum finally stopped them. The mechanic's face was grim the next morning. Brake line was cut clean through. This was deliberate, ma'am. You need to file a police report. But when Evelyn reviewed the security camera footage her father had installed around their apartment, cameras she hadn't known existed until Margaret told her where to look, she saw a figure in dark clothing crouching by her car at 2 a.m. The footage was too grainy to identify them, but the intent was clear. Then Emma came home from school pale and frightened. Mom, there was a car following our bus. A black one with tinted windows. It waited outside until Mrs. Patterson noticed and called the principal. The phone calls started that evening. A digitally distorted voice. Accept the offer. This doesn't have to get ugly. Think about your daughters. Evelyn barely slept. When Sterling appeared at her door the next morning, she knew before he spoke that something was wrong. He held legal documents, his expression a mixture of smugness and false concern. I didn't want to do this, Evie, but Dad gave me power of attorney before he died. The property should be in a family trust that I control. For everyone's protection. That's a lie. I have documentation. Dated and notarized. Before she could respond, Vivian arrived with a county inspector who spent 20 minutes examining the apartment building before declaring it had dangerous structural issues and posting a condemnation notice. You can't stay here, Vivian said, her voice dripping false sympathy. But don't worry, Revita Corp's offer still stands. Take it, Evie. This is getting out of hand. After they left, Evelyn called Margaret, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "They cut my brakes. They're following my children. Sterling's claiming power of attorney, and Vivian just had my building condemned." Margaret was silent for a moment. "They're escalating because they're desperate. You need federal protection and serious legal firepower. It's time to go public, Evelyn. Time to fight back." Evelyn looked at her daughters doing homework at the kitchen table, oblivious to the danger circling them. Her father's words echoed, "Be brave." She'd spent years running from conflict, apologizing for existing. Not anymore. "Tell me what I need to do." Margaret Chin made the introductions. Within 48 hours, Evelyn sat across from Special Agent Diana Torres of the FBI and Robert Hammond from the Treasury Department's Office of Financial Crimes. The blueprints and her father's documentation spread between them. "This facility was declared lost in 1987, Hammond said, his voice tight with disbelief. "The gold reserves were written off as accounting errors. You're telling me it's been sitting here for nearly 40 years? My father was its guardian. Now I am." Torres leaned forward. "Mrs. Fowler, you understand this makes you a target? We're talking about people who've already attempted murder." "I know. That's why I'm here." Margaret had also connected her with Patricia Weston, an attorney whose reputation preceded her. Weston was 55, silver-haired, and had the demeanor of someone who'd built her career destroying corporate corruption. Her retainer was astronomical, but Evelyn had brought payment that made the lawyer's eyes widen, a small gold bar from Site 7, properly documented. Within days, Weston's findings were damning. Sterling's power of attorney was forged, dated 3 days after their father's death. Vivian had paid the county inspector $15,000, traced through her real estate company's accounts. "We have them on fraud and conspiracy," Weston said. "But the real prize is Revita Corp." Richard Voss arrived at Evelyn's apartment unannounced, a man in his 60s with silver temples and cold eyes. His bodyguards waited in the hallway. "Mrs. Fowler, I'm prepared to offer $5 million. Sign over the property, walk away quietly, and this all ends." "No." Voss's expression didn't change. "Your children are beautiful. Emma and Lily, isn't it? 8 years old. So vulnerable at that age." He let the words hang in the air. "Be wise." After he left, Evelyn sat shaking with rage for exactly 5 minutes. Then she called Weston and Torres. "I want a press conference. At the property. With Treasury officials present. I'm going public with everything." That evening, she sat her daughters down at the kitchen table. They deserved the truth, or as much of it as they could handle. "Grandpa left us something very valuable," she said carefully. "And some bad people want to take it from us. So we're going to make sure the truth comes out. It might be scary for a little while, but I promise I'll keep you safe." Emma's eyes were wide. "Like in the movies?" "A little. But we're going to win." The next challenge came from an unexpected direction. Brad filed for emergency custody, his petition claiming Evelyn was mentally unstable and putting the children at risk through paranoid delusions. "He's being pressured," Weston said. "Or paid. Either way, we'll handle it." The night before the press conference, federal marshals stationed at Site 7 caught 3 men attempting to breach the underground facility. The men had professional equipment and detailed knowledge of the layout. Torres called Evelyn at midnight. "They're desperate. Which means we've already won. They're just too stupid to realize it yet." Standing at her window, watching the marshals guarding her building, Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in years. Powerful. She wasn't running anymore. She was fighting back. And she was going to win. The press conference took place on a cold morning in November. Reporters and camera crews packed into the gravel lot of Fowler's country store. Evelyn stood at a makeshift podium, federal agents flanking her daughters safely with Margaret Chin in a secure location. She was terrified, but she spoke anyway. "My name is Evelyn Fowler. 2 months ago, my father left me what everyone thought was a worthless gas station." She paused, meeting the cameras directly. "What he actually left me was Site 7, a forgotten Cold War facility containing $120 million in government gold reserves and evidence of a 30-year conspiracy to steal federal assets." The murmur that went through the crowd was electric. Behind her, Robert Hammond stepped forward. "The Treasury Department can confirm that the gold reserves at Site 7 are authentic, marked with serial numbers from our 1962 Emergency Preparedness Program. Due to bureaucratic failures, these assets were never properly transferred during decommissioning. They legally belong to the property owner, Mrs. Fowler." Special Agent Torres took the podium next. "The FBI has opened investigations into Revita Corp for corporate espionage, attempted murder, and conspiracy to defraud. We've also uncovered a network of bribery involving county officials and forged legal documents designed to steal Mrs. Fowler's inheritance." The arrests began within hours. Sterling was taken from his law office in handcuffs, his face ashen as cameras captured every moment. Vivian was arrested at her real estate agency, her perfectly composed facade finally cracking. County Inspector Morrison resigned before he could be formally charged, but 3 other officials weren't as lucky. Richard Voss was detained for questioning at Revita Corp headquarters. By market close, the company's stock had plummeted 43%. The media frenzy was instant and overwhelming. "Hidden Cold War gold found beneath country store. Single mother uncovers government conspiracy. Siblings face federal charges in inheritance theft plot." Brad dropped the custody suit the same day, his lawyer having advised him it was now a public relations nightmare. The federal negotiations took weeks. Treasury wanted to purchase the gold reserves at fair market value. Evelyn retained ownership of the property and all mineral rights. Site 7 would be preserved as a National Historic Landmark. When the trials concluded, Sterling received 8 years in federal prison. Vivian got 6. Richard Voss got 15, and Revita Corp filed for bankruptcy, drowning in civil suits from shareholders and federal penalties. Evelyn attended Sterling's sentencing, sitting in the back of the courtroom. When it was over and he was led away, she felt no satisfaction, only a deep, aching grief for the family that might have been. But she also felt something else, vindication. Her father had been right about her all along. She'd been strong enough, smart enough, brave enough. She just hadn't known it until she'd been forced to prove it. Walking out of the courthouse into a barrage of camera flashes, Evelyn held her head high. She'd spent years apologizing for taking up space. Those days were over. She'd found her voice. And she wasn't silencing it for anyone. 8 months later, Evelyn stood in front of Fowler Heritage Station and barely recognized it. The yellow paint gleamed fresh in the autumn sunlight. The country store sign hung straight and proud. The gas pumps, restored vintage models, actually worked, serving the steady stream of tourists and locals who'd made the station a destination. Inside, the store operated as it had decades ago, shelves stocked with nostalgic candy and cold drinks. But now there was also a small museum dedicated to Cold War history, displaying carefully curated artifacts and the story of Site 7. Visitors lined up for the guided tours of the underground facility, now a National Historic Landmark preserved exactly as it had been found. Emma and Lily burst through the door, their private school uniforms replaced by jeans and sweaters, their blonde hair catching the light. They'd spent months in trauma counseling, processing everything that had happened, but they were thriving now, confident, curious, asking questions about everything. "Mom! Mrs. Chen says the tour group wants to meet you," Emma called. Evelyn smiled. Margaret Chen had become a constant presence, a dear friend who'd revealed that she'd promised Harold Fowler she'd watch over his daughter. "He knew you'd need an ally," Margaret had said. "He just didn't know how soon." Evelyn's life had transformed in ways she still couldn't fully comprehend. She worked as a consultant for the National Historic Preservation Trust, gave speeches about Cold War infrastructure and historic site protection. The wealth, $120 million from the gold sale, over $50 million from mineral rights leases, $10 million from the property's value, was managed through a trust, most of it funding the Fowler Family Legacy Fund. The foundation provided scholarships for single mothers returning to school and grants for historic preservation projects across the country. The family rift was permanent. Sterling and Vivian were in federal prison, and Evelyn had made peace with never speaking to them again. Extended family had divided along predictable lines, some supportive, others convinced she'd somehow orchestrated everything. But there had been one unexpected ally. Brad's mother had appeared at Evelyn's door 3 months ago, tears in her eyes, apologizing for years of looking the other way. "I always knew you were wrong," she'd said. "I was just too much of a coward to say it." She now saw her grandchildren regularly, a bridge to a past that wasn't entirely painful. Outside, workers were putting the finishing touches on a memorial plaque near the entrance. Evelyn walked over to read the inscription, her daughters flanking her. "In memory of Harold James Fowler, 1945 to 2024, guardian of Site 7, protector of history. He saw value where others saw decay. He built foundations that would last." Lily squeezed her hand. "Grandpa would be proud of you, Mom. He'd be proud of all of us," Evelyn replied, her voice thick with emotion. She looked at herself reflected in the museum's window, professional clothes that actually fit, hair styled with care, shoulders back, chin up. Behind her, the station hummed with life and purpose. Her daughters played freely, unafraid. And for the first time in years, Evelyn felt complete. She wasn't rebuilding just a gas station. She was rebuilding herself, her daughter's future, her father's legacy. She'd gone from a woman who apologized for existing to a woman who stood firm in her worth. The foundation, her father had written, is stronger than it appears. He'd been right about everything. Most of all, he'd been right about her. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting and beautiful stories lined up for you already, so click on the image showing on your screen to watch the next one.